Welcome back to the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast with me, Bryce Bauer. I'm a marriage counselor, men's group leader, and I also am an author. I wrote the book Men in Marriage: How to Show Up in Your Most Important Relationship. You can find it on Amazon. Today, I'm going to be talking about what women look for in a partner. And this can be a very interesting topic because what initially attracts a woman to you might not be the thing that they really want in a long-term partnership. And this is even highlighted when you think about online dating because all you have to go off of is a picture and a brief description, usually about yourself. And that can seem really superficial. And this can feel really frustrating if you know you have a lot to offer, but maybe you're not the best looking guy in the traditional sense, or you don't know how to distill that down into a few sentences about yourself. But I'm also here to tell you that I don't think that's that important. You ultimately want to focus on the values and qualities that will sustain a long-term relationship, and you don't have to focus as much on what's going to get someone's attention. That's a very small piece of the puzzle. The most important things that you need to have to sustain a long-term partnership are honesty and integrity, emotional intelligence, and respect and appreciation. Those are the traits that are going to go the distance. So, what does honesty and integrity really mean? I'm sure a lot of people want to think about ourselves as honest and sticking to our word and showing up. But to get really honest with ourselves, we have to look for ways in which we don't. One of the common excuses I hear from men is that they want to maintain some level of privacy so that they can do what they want, and they hope that their partner will not be impacted by it. And most often, those things include looking at porn or looking at Instagram pictures or even kind of being flirty with people at work or out in the world. This is an area where I see a lot of men struggle to get honest and to see the real impact that this can have on themselves and their partner. And I could probably do a whole episode on porn, but I'll just give you my quick thoughts on it. A lot of guys find porn at an early age. And it's interesting and it's exciting and it's easily accessible. And it's one way to create a fantasy world in our head that we can escape to and enjoy and to feel good just with ourselves. The problem is this becomes the way that we relate to sex. It changes our taste and our sexual desire. And then when we try to map that onto our relationship with our current partner, it often doesn't stack up. Connecting with a real person is going to feel and look different than connecting with someone that we're watching on a screen. And when we try to project some of our fantasies on our partner, granted, there's room to do this in a conscious way, but most often it's in an unconscious way. Our partners can feel that. They can sense that, and it doesn't feel good for them. For most women, knowing that their man's attention is going to all these other women when they're watching porn doesn't feel good. It doesn't help them feel secure in the relationship. Why are you going to all these other sources when I'm right here? We only have so much attention and we get to decide how to use it. So all the attention we give other things or people on screens is attention we're not giving to our partners. Not only that, a lot of porn is violent. It often involves people that are dealing with some serious trauma or substance abuse issues. The porn industry is not a healthy community. It involves people being objectified and exploited for money. So we can't pretend that that doesn't have an impact on us, or we're not feeding into that industry or supporting an industry that takes advantage of people. And it also doesn't allow us to grow and evolve our attraction to our partner as they age and as they change. It can keep us stuck in a very narrow view of sexuality that is a fantasy. It's all on the screen and in our heads. And even if you don't think that it has an impact, it does. And that's one thing that we have to get honest about. And this is even me getting honest with you. I stopped watching porn about 9 years ago. And at first I was resistant. Jenny asked me if I watched porn. We had just started dating. And I told her the truth that I did. I had since I was a teenager, on and off, depending if I was in a relationship or not, but it was usually a constant. And I don't think it was an addiction, but it was still a very consistent part of my life, especially when I was single. And I didn't want to see or hear that it had an impact on Jenny or that she would prefer if I explored it and even stopped watching porn. But just like any dependence or addiction, I first had to admit that there were areas where I didn't feel like I had a ton of control over this. Sometimes you don't realize that you have an issue with something until you try to stop and you feel that resistance and you manipulate yourself or convince yourself that it's not an issue. And I felt that, but it didn't take long for me to realize that this was not going to be something that was going to help me be in long-term partnership. And sometimes I will think about this as like if I was in court and I had to argue why something is beneficial for me. And like, what reasons could I really come up with that make sense? And I just didn't have many. They were all kind of selfish reasons, either minimizing it, that it wasn't that big of a deal, or that it shouldn't have an impact on anyone else, which it does, or that it was one way to express my sexuality when really it was just me living in fantasy. So all those arguments broke down pretty quick. And even going to therapy and talking about this, couples therapy, I noticed how it helped Jenny feel safer. It helped me feel more confident as a man, and how both of those things really, really benefited our relationship. And that's why I've stuck to the agreement not to watch porn. And that's just one example of how you can have more honesty and integrity in your relationship. It's not just about being honest about what you did today. Sometimes it can be about the more subtle things in the space you carve out in your life to hide or avoid seeing the truth. If your partner watches you go through this process of challenging your own beliefs and taking charge of your life and having integrity with yourself, their security with you gets boosted. They see a man who they don't have to track all the time, who can handle his own shit. And this helps put their mind and body at ease. Some guys come into me and they're frustrated that their partner seems to be watching over them all the time and is kind of paranoid. And often when we look into it, they've given them reasons to feel that way. They've gone outside the relationship. They've lied. They've broken trust. They've broken agreements with themselves. It's normal for insecurities to pop up in a relationship as you integrate your lives more and there's more at stake. But we don't have to give people any more reason to doubt us and to not trust us. And it can be really hard and take a long time to come back from that. If you've had an affair or lied about something repeatedly, it can take years to build that trust and security back again. So my advice is to, from the beginning in a relationship, side on being more transparent and honest about your shortcomings and to over communicate so that things don't pop up later. I've also had this experience with clients where they don't share that much about their past. And then once they're in a relationship, they start saying, like, oh, yeah, this happened, that happened. And their partner's like, why didn't you tell me this months ago? This would have been relevant information before we had sex or before we moved in together to know that you've dealt with this. Because now I'm not sure if you've really confronted it and dealt with it and know how to manage it. So if you're in a new relationship, highly suggest being very transparent. And even if you're already in a long-term partnership, it could be helpful to just go through a list of things that you've omitted or not been totally honest about or lied about so you can start that foundation of trust building again. And a lot of times, if you're in a long-term partnership, you might want to get support for that because that conversation can bring up a lot of feelings in your partner, but it's never too late to clear the slate. The other trait I mentioned was emotional intelligence. And this is something that most guys were not taught growing up, and they don't learn even later in life. Where do you even learn that? And to distill it down, emotional intelligence is the ability to attune to how you're feeling, have language for how you're feeling, and then communicate that clearly and effectively. And a lot of guys don't even know how to identify how they really feel because they have all these strategies to compartmentalize how they feel, avoid how they're feeling, cope with how they're feeling. And they've never had the experience of actually going into the core emotion or core wound and expressing that to anyone. So this does take education, it does take practice, it does take work. This isn't one that you're just going to sit with and figure out on your own because you only know what you know now. And then the third trait, which is really two traits that are fairly synonymous, is respect and appreciation. And this even ties into honesty because if you really respect someone, then you're going to be honest with them and you're going to appreciate when they're being honest with you because you know how hard it can be to get honest when you know it's going to bring up feelings in your partner. And respect really is a form of appreciation. I'm often surprised at how little appreciation I see from couples in their relationship. And some of this is because they have busy lives and they just don't have that many interactions. And when they do, it's more about problem solving or bringing up criticisms. I can see how it can be really disconnecting and stressful to be in a relationship where most of your communication is surface level or bringing up concerns. I wouldn't want to talk to that person anymore. As a general rule, and this comes from the Gottman Institute, we need to provide 10 appreciations for every criticism. And I think this is because we are wired for safety, and getting a criticism from someone can bring up intense feelings and stories. Are they going to leave me? Am I good enough for you? We almost automatically attach some of those stories to any criticism. So we really have to work hard to build each other up so that we can manage these criticisms better. And although I agree with the idea that my feelings are my responsibility, in practice, in a primary partnership, a marriage, you have a huge impact on each other. And there's a lot at stake. So we can't ignore that. So if you want to run your relationship that way, that you just kind of behave however you want and your partner's feelings are theirs and they have to deal with them, go ahead. I just don't see that working very well. And it's not like I think you need to rattle off 10 appreciations and then throw in your criticism when you meet together at the dinner table. It's more that we have to create these consistent touch points to have our partner feel seen and understood so that we can create the space to have some conflict. And I think what's interesting is the more that I do this with Jenny, I look for the appreciations, I look to understand her. It makes some of the issues that she'll bring up make more sense to me. And I've had to drill this into my brain over and over that when Jenny brings up a concern, she really is trying to improve our relationship. That is the intention. And when I can see that, then it's easier for me to hear what she's saying. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with her or take her advice, but I don't view her as this villain or this controlling wife. I can see past it to the intention. Most of the time, not all the time. I still get tripped up here. I even did this today. And I caught myself after like 10 minutes. And it was really cool that it totally shifted the vibe of the conversation. But this piece is really important. And I've heard this from women quite a bit that sometimes guys will present in the first 6 months to 2 years as this very respectful and appreciative partner. And then after a while, they get lulled into a sense of complacency and they just stop doing all that stuff. And then their partner's like, what the heck? I was dating this guy who seemed to really appreciate me, and now he acts like I don't exist or that I'm causing him all these problems. And that can feel really jarring. And I think that happens over time because we automate our partners and we take them for granted sometimes. That's normal. And our attention starts to drift to other things, especially as men, to work and hobbies, or maybe building relationship with the kids. And women can start to feel really missed after 10 plus years of marriage. So those are some of the main traits that women value in long-term partnership: honesty and integrity, emotional intelligence, and respect and appreciation. Some of the other things that tend to be really important in relationship are mutual goals and shared interests and hobbies. And these are important to revisit if you've been in a marriage for a while. Are we still heading in the same direction? Do we share the same goals? Have they changed at all? And are we living as if these really matter to us? Can we do an honest assessment about that? Are we acting as if we really want to grow and evolve and create more intimacy and connection in our partnership, if that's what you want? Do we have financial goals or health goals? Or do we want to improve our relationships to our extended family? Are we on the same page with parenting? Women love to see their partners take initiative here. It's not that we have to be the leaders and figure everything out, but are we at least pulling our weight in the relationship department. And I know this can be flip-flopped. It's not always male, female. Maybe you're a man and you feel like you're pulling more weight and you want that out of your partner. If you've been more passive there, it may be helpful to speak up about that. It's also important that you have some shared interests and hobbies, and they don't have to look the way someone else's relationship hobbies look. For instance, I've really figured out that Jenny loves walking and she loves talking. And throughout the course of my life, I've been more interested in sports and intense activities. So I try to make it a point to spend time on the couch just talking about our lives and what we want, and to go on walks with her, even though sometimes I might prefer to play pickleball. I get plenty of time to do that, by the way, because I want to prioritize the relationship and some of the needs that she has. And it turns out I like those things as well. I can be a bit of an adrenaline junkie at times, and it's been a helpful practice to slow me down and choose to go on a walk and just talk than to always go for the thing that's just going to flood my brain with dopamine. And I like to travel. So even though Jenny isn't a huge fan of the travel process, she just has a lot more stuff to get together and it takes her more time. She's been really good about going out to see my family or traveling to see some of her family because she knows that's important to me. So all that to say, some couples already have things in their life that they have a shared interest in and desire for. And sometimes it'll take more work or some adapting. But the idea is that you carve out time to just spend time with each other, doing something that you both like. And women love to see their man step up in this way. The final thing I'll talk about is attraction and your energy, your humor, your playfulness, really your vibe and the attitude that you bring to the relationship. Another very common issue I see with men is that they take on a lot in their lives and they're stressed out or they're depressed, and then they wonder why their partner isn't feeling very open to them or playful with them or wanting to connect with them more. And this is an area where you really have to look in the mirror. Look at your face, look at your body language, look at how you're holding yourself, your tone. Are you someone that you'd want to spend time with right now? Because if you're low energy and frustrated and you put on some weight and you're not taking care of yourself and you just want to lay around the house on Sunday and watch football and drink a couple beers, you shouldn't be surprised if your partner's not really attracted to you. That's probably not what they signed up for at the beginning of the relationship. So one thought experiment that you can try on is, instead of sitting there wondering why my partner is not attracted to me, think about what you're doing to be a magnet for attraction. Just like if you were single. Usually when we're single, we're more likely to hit the gym and bring our best attitude because we want someone to like us. And so we're putting in a lot of effort. We're investing in trying to make a connection. And you can use that same idea even if you're already in a relationship. What are you doing that's going to draw your partner to you instead of blaming them for not being attracted to you? And I'll hear this complaint from women sometimes that they'll go to a work event with their partner, or they'll hear about their partner at work and how they're energetic and friendly and collaborative. And then they come home and they feel like they get a whole different side of their partner. And their husband is like, well, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I just don't have any energy. That can be crazy making for a spouse. Why do you put so much effort into showing up a certain way at work and then you show up this way at home? It shows how much you value these different environments. I know this might be off-putting for some people to hear, but I think there is a certain amount of sales involved in relationships because we really can change our state and in turn change the state of our partner just by our energy, just by our attitude. The first chapter in my book is Fix Your Attitude, and you'd be surprised at how far this can go when we can have awareness and really put intention into changing the way that we are relating to others. If you wouldn't talk to your boss or coworker like that, then don't talk to your wife like that. If you have to have a really positive attitude when you're selling something or networking, then you can do that with your partner as well. It's totally possible. So that's one thing to think about, is how do you become a magnet for connection? What are you doing that will have your partner feel attracted to you? If this is something that you want to do on a more consistent basis to invest in your relationship, to learn better communication skills, to have accountability with yourself in the presence of others, you can join one of the men's groups that I run. Just go to www.brycebauer.com to read more about it. That's all I got for today. Peace.